One time during a war, Michelangelo had to hide for a couple of weeks here in a secret room off the Medici crypt. This is how he described it. I hid in a tiny cell, entombed like the dead Medici above. To forget my fears, I filled the walls with drawings. An incredible hidden treasure. But now, back to the murder theory. Let's summarize. Remember Giovanni? Iliac crest, unfused. Right age for victim. Massive dental infection, not cause of death. Manubrium on top of sternum missing. Likely spot for stabbing, but not proof of murder.
We take this up first. This comes up first.
Yeah.
If we are ever going to find out if Giovanni was murdered, the next body to examine is the younger brother, Garcia. Remember, the poor kid was supposedly killed by his enraged father, but he's also our prime suspect as a murderer. The Medici family may have had a dark side. Was murder really involved in the death of young Giovanni de' Medici? Our exhumation of the family crypt may finally provide answers. We're on the trail of Garcia, the suspected murderer. Now we just have to open his grave. This excavation is front-page news in Italy, and everybody who works in the crypt wants to see what's happening. It's standing room only.
More shallow? I don't know, but there's more mud at the bottom, is the thing. You want some mud?
Thank you.
Yeah. Come on in. Here it is.
Ossa.
The bones of, right? Ossa bones. Cosimo, so it's going to be the son of. Fiel, son of Cosimo. Garzia, you think? Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Sì. Ossa, Garcia, de' Medici, Cosmi, primi figli.
Fiel, yeah. The bones of Garzia, the son of Cosimo I. So at least we have the right guy. Yeah. Now, yeah, keep it level.
Yeah?
Right.
Side again. No.
Good, keep going.
Once the bones are in the field laboratory, Gino's team goes to work, removing the bones from the ossuary. That's strange. There's a piece of velvet fabric in with the bones. We photograph it, just in case it's important. Again, it looks like the bones are in pretty good condition. They should be able to tell us more about the murders.
If you counted the bones on this table, there'd be more than the normal 206. That's because Garzia was only 16 when he died. Remember our cardinal? Remember we looked at the pelvis bone and it hadn't fused because he was young? Well, because Garzia is only 16, most of his bones are separated. Look over here. These aren't two separate bones. This is the top of this one. But over the centuries, they've separated. Okay, that's your anatomy lesson for today. Now, what about the murder theory? Well, remember, supposedly Garzia was run in by his father's sword? Look carefully at these bones. If a sword really went into his body, there'd be cut marks, maybe around the vertebra, the ribs, the sternum, but they're absolutely clean. There's no evidence of violence. My bet is that the murder theory is just a myth.
There's no doubt the brothers died within weeks of each other. But there's got to be some explanation other than a bloody stabbing. So how did they die? Perhaps there's a way to find out. Our radiologist, Dr. Villari, is pleased with his 400-year-old patient. It's something different. Every possible medical technology will be applied to these bones to see what they will reveal. The X-rays are absolutely beautiful. But something's wrong. Look closely. Can you see what doesn't belong? It's a tooth lodged in the skull. That's post-mortem. It fell out after death when the body was reduced to just bones. Later, when Garcia was reburied, it fell into the skull. Donatella's archive research reveals that Garcia was ill several times during his childhood. Some episodes of illness leave their marks in the bones. See those thin horizontal white lines? Each one marks an illness. They're called growth arrest lines. When you're sick, you stop growing. The body uses your nutrients to fight off the illness. The technique is kind of like reading tree rings. The spacing of the lines can tell us when Garcia was sick. Calculations show he was sick starting at the age of 2, and then 4 more times before he was 10. He was chronically ill as a child, but that doesn't tell us what killed him. So how did the brothers die? Were they really murdered? Garcia, ribs, no cut marks, sternum, no signs of violence, not run through with a sword. Giovanni, missing manubrium, but no real signs of violence, not stabbed to death. Conclusion, no physical evidence of murder. So what killed them? A crucial clue may be in a letter. The family physician advised Cosimo not to take the boys to Maremma, where malaria was raging. Cosimo didn't listen. On November 20th, 1562, he wrote to another son. On the 15th, Giovanni suffered from a high fever, but became worse and died. Could it be that malaria, not murder, is the cause of death? That's exactly what the team expects to find through medical testing of their remains. But medical testing isn't our only interest. As our investigation proceeds, we're building a profile of the brothers. But let me show you something about their daily life. Remember our small fragment of textile we discovered in Garcia's coffin? It's quite distinctive, and you won't believe what we found in the Florence Costume Museum.
This is the Medici room, and this is the case for Don Garcia. That garment, I'm no fashion expert, but I think it's going to match our cloth. Oh, take a look. Come close. There it is. Now, the garment looks pretty much complete. There it is. You see it right by the leg. There's a missing piece where it's been restored. And this goes right there. We got a match.
This is the outfit Don Garcia was buried in. Remember the 1940s excavators who put the bones in the little boxes? They removed his clothes, but missed the velvet fragment. Later, when they found it, they threw it in the box with the bones. We have to contend with the remnants of the mysterious 1940s excavation. More than 50 years ago, some of the Medici tombs were opened by anthropologists with no archaeological training. They made quite a mess of things and never published their findings. The curator of the Anthropological Museum knows all about the mysterious excavation. She has all they left behind: plaster casts of the skulls of the Medici. They had some misguided theory that by studying the cranial capacity of the skulls, they could explain the Medici genius. Let me show you something curious about the work of the 1940s excavators.
You know what we found when I was looking at the skull? Small cut marks on the skulls, sometimes around the mandible. I think in 1947, 1948, they had flesh on them still. They were mummies. And I think they wanted to get at the skull, and they took the flesh off with a knife. I think it was a period maybe when they were interested mainly in the skull. You know, in the early days of physical anthropology, it was only the skull that they wanted, and I think that's what they went after.
The next Medici we'll exhume is Eleonora, Giovanni and Garcia's mother. She married Cosimo de' Medici when she was a teenager, but she came with a fortune of her own. She was smart, energetic, independent, and a devoted mother to all her children. Just look at her private chapel in the Palazzo Vecchio. It's covered with paintings of children. See the face of the Madonna? That's her daughter, Maria. And when the rooms in the palace became too small and cramped for her children to play in, she did what any millionaire mother would do. She moved to the suburbs and renovated a huge palace. There, her kids could play in the gardens in freedom. But in the end, she died at the age of 40, 6 days after her son Garcia, supposedly from a broken heart. Will her remains reveal the true cause of her death? This is the first time an international team has been given permission to open the crypt of the Medici. We've opened the tombs of the two brothers and are about to excavate the tomb of their mother, Eleonora. We feel more confident. We think we know just how to do it. Soon we will find out how very wrong we are.
There's a surprise. There are bones on the top of the grave. So we've got to go very slowly and try to recover everything. Fidangi, huh? Fidangi.
It's a piece of wood. No?
Yeah, it's bone.
Yeah.
Antonio, can you look there? Look there. And Antonella, over there.
Everything slows down.
You work there with
We must sift through rubble to find any other bones. Gino's team is used to identifying bones, and they find several more.
She's great. Yes. So some are from the hands, some are from the foot. The mano de pied. Yeah. Tutte humano? Tutte humano? Yeah, they're all human, yeah.
Then we find a rib. Is there an entire body? No, just one rib. More evidence of the 1940s excavators. They had some extra Medici bones, so they just chucked them in the rubble. It's slow going, but finally we clear the rubble and get to the level of the stone slab. But again, there's a surprise. It's completely different. There's not one slab, there's three. When we try to lift the middle slab, we find that the three slabs are carved, so the edges interlock. You can't just lift the middle one. It's an anti-theft device. It's causing us problems, but we all appreciate the design. Franco and Paolo start removing more floor tiles to get to the third slab. Why the special protection? What's underneath?
By hand.
Yes.
Okay.
The third slab finally comes up, and we find the familiar mud from the Arno River flood of 1966.
Lots of mud, but we've seen that before. Oh. See? Si due.
As we peer into the tomb, we can see another box. It's not just Eleonora in there.
Due coffin. Yeah.
This is the ever-changing excavation.
See the other one?
Yeah.
We're okay.
They must have buried her husband, Cosimo, with her. By now, everyone knows the drill. The stretcher is brought, the box removed to the field laboratory, and then Eleonora's box is removed. Why is her box larger and heavier than her husband's?
Very different. It's not in a jumble. It's the cranium and the mandible are separate.
Yeah.
And it's as if it's in place carefully. The other ones were just sort of piled in.
The answer is, she had the deluxe model ossuary. There's a special compartment for the cranium and a separate one for the other bones.
Slowly. Yes.
I like the idea that she had the zippiest box.
It's okay.
Eleonora was into style. Her dresses were made of the finest fabrics and in the latest fashion. When she commissioned the artist, Bronzino, to paint her portrait, he was paid well. But the seamstress who designed the dress was paid just as much as the artist. Eleonora loved wearable art. Eleonora's bones are in good condition, And I think they will tell us more about this amazing woman.